In the world we live, freedom of speech is a notion that all human beings have an essential right to voice their opinions and ideas publicly without fear of censure and persecution. In the classical Greek times, Socrates was the first martyr of freedom of expression. Then from time to time, freedom of expression suffered during wars, during coups, during genocides. The United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted in 1948, provides in Article 19 that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. Today, that in the 21st century, in an era of 24/7 social media interaction, people in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are under siege and held incommunicado by the Indian government.
The recent development that we've seen, it's a coup on the media press club. I mean, it's a dismal state of affairs when it comes to press freedom over there. They've locked up the press club over there. So where do the Kashmiri journalists go, or the cameramen or the videographers? And draconian laws are imposed against them, like UPA, like Dada, POTA, PSA, and they're locked up for capturing the images of Indian barbarity.
Although the Indian government has always tried to suppress flow of information, the revocation of Article 370 and 35A, the curbs imposed on communications have been tightened in the valley. From internet to WhatsApp, from phone service to social media, all the means of communication were shut down. For weeks, the newspapers went offline. Even after newspapers were back in the print, they were devoid of detailed reports.
Revocation of Article 370 and 35A, India put a total communication blackout into Kashmir. There was no internet, internet was shut down. Even the phone lines and mobile phones, everything was shut. It was a total communication black hole in Kashmir.
In the year 2020, India dropped 2 spots to 142 in the World Press Freedom Index due to the situation in Kashmir.
जो आलमी तंजीमें हैं जो सहाफ़ियों के हवाले से तहफ़्फ़ुज़ की बात करते हैं, जिसमें CPJ है या जो ग्लेड है या जो दूसरी इंसानी हुकूक़ की तंजीम है, एमनेस्टी इंटरनेशनल हो या यूनाइटेड नेशंस का ह्यूमन राइट्स कमीशन हो, उन्होंने भी कश्मीरी सहाफ़ियों के हवाले से अपनी रिपोर्ट्स जारी की और तशवीश का इजहार किया। बहरहाल कश्मीर इस वक्त एक सुलगता हुआ आतिशफ़शा है, जहाँ बैनुल-अक़वामी बरादरी की इंसानी हुकूक़ की तंजीमों की तवज्जो की ज़रूरत है।
The communications blackouts in the state of Jammu and Kashmir make it impossible for the journalists to report what happens there. Many of them face harassment, surveillance, intimidation, and even the fear of detention. Following the August 5th shutdown of the media in the state of Jammu and Kashmir in the year 2020, many journalists reported they were forced to report from the so-called facilitation centers set up by the Indian government in order to censor the content that was to be reported.
The government of India then issued as advisory to the journalists that they have to, first of all, the government will verify the content, whatever they will have to publish. So they had a place where they were called to book their stories, and those stories were firstly verified by the government officials, the intelligence officials, so that the international world should not know about what is happening in Kashmir.
The only reports that were released were the ones that were approved. The Indian government has also attached strings to the release of advertisements to the newspapers. The Directorate of Information and Publication Relations, DIPR, has been given the task to scrutinize the news reports, and the journalists are forced to process the information provided to them rather than investigate a story.
What the new media policy basically does is that it allows the state to create a framework within which it can regulate the journalistic work which is being produced. It basically turns journalists into stenographers who can basically only do PR for the state and nothing more.
Only those newspapers were allowed to publish their news that was pro-India, that was the pro-India state narrative, that everything is fine and BJP is developing Kashmir, and the ground realities were totally deleted.
So fearful is the Indian government of the truth coming out that they prevented the media from going near Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani's home after his death on September 1st, 2021. They were also not allowed to report about the heavy contingent of the Indian security forces present outside his home. Senator Hayram Varan Johnson was of opinion that truth is the ultimate casualty in war. While Indian government extols her status as the largest democracy in the world, Kashmiris are fighting a war of independence, a war in which the oppressor's assault on the truth is pretty much evident.